Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 9 of Humanity Rising, which started on the 22nd of May. And every day between 5 and 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time, we've gathered for 2 hours to contemplate the very pressing and profound question of how do we transform the crisis of the pandemic in which we all find ourselves into an opportunity for human renewal. We've been literally overwhelmed by the response coming in. In only about 6-7 weeks, we've managed to have 350 to 400 speakers and a similar number of organizations join out of the urgency that everybody feels about this current pandemic. This is the first time in all of human history where virtually every person, everywhere, has undergone the same experience at the same time. It's unprecedented. And it's put the whole world, for the first time, in a single conversation. How do we navigate through this pandemic? Almost all of us are under lockdown. I've been in Amsterdam, and I will stay here till the pandemic passes. All of you are sequestered somewhere. So we have a unique opportunity to come together to really delve into the very important question of how do we envision the world beyond the pandemic? And more fundamentally, how do we refine our strategic effectiveness so that we can actually make a difference in the post-pandemic world and catalyze a more sustainable, a more resilient, a more abundant, a more healthy world for us and our children to live in. So every day from 5 to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time, that's 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Time in the United States, we're going to be gathering. And we welcome everyone to join the conversations. We welcome you to go on our platform, our Ubiverse. All of you that are on the Zoom call are registered so that you can upload blogs, you can upload videos, you can engage in conversations. Because quite literally, we stand on the precipice of self-destruction, at the center of which is runaway climate change and a range of other issues. So how we use this opportunity to shape more constructively the world over the next 10 years may be the most critical challenge any of us have faced in our lives. And so it's in the spirit of radical collaboration, in the conviction that if we all come together proactively to dialogue together, to share what we're doing together, to engage in strategic formation around projects we can all embrace and then work on locally and scale globally. That is the purpose of Humanity Rising. And I want to thank all of you for joining. One additional word, we have started Humanity Rising listening to the voices of women. This is the 9th day of women's circles. And then tomorrow will be our final circle. And then we'll have 7 days listening to voices of youth. We've started Humanity Rising in this way because we believe that the radical and immediate empowerment of women in executive leadership, in governments and in organizations worldwide could be one of the most important things the world could do to truly transform the world. Just think, if women were in the lead between now and 2030, what a world we would have in 10 years. And our youth are the generation at ground zero. They're going to reap the whirlwind if we don't solve these problems. The pandemic was only the latest indication of, and they will be prosperous beyond measure if the world comes together in radical collaboration to build something sustainable and abundant for the future. That's what Humanity Rising is designed, with thousands, maybe millions of organizations and people around the world who work day by day for a better future. I would like to now turn the floor over to Sabina van Gaffke. She's one of our speakers. She's from Sweden, a very distinguished entrepreneur, a businesswoman, broadcast journalist, who, when we found out that she, in addition to many other things, also does moderation of conferences and so forth, we invited her to be present to support the women's circles as the host. So Sabina, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, Jim. And I want to once again on day 9 express a warm welcome to all you viewers and beautiful souls around the world who've taken your time to join these conversations. It really has become like, you know, a sacred container in space that I personally, I'm sure Jim and everybody else really look forward to stepping into this global container to really listen to profound conversations and speakers and leaders and entrepreneurs around the world, addressing all the core issues that we need to address to really create that better future that Jim so eloquently described. And like Jim also said, this is the 9th session, the 9th day of Humanity Rising Summit. I see this summit also as a global transformative and shape-shifting platform and movement that is here to open space for global conversations, ignite inspired action that really make a real hands-on difference in the world. And like I mentioned before, help us navigate towards the paradigm that we are heading towards, or actually in, that requires systemic change, new governance, new structures, new leadership, rising of the consciousness, and a reintegrated humanity that is needed to creating this regenerative and sustainable way of living and future that we hopefully all of us are thriving to create. And I'm both inspired and humbled to be facilitating or holding space for these conversations that are happening here, and also to be part of this profound and much needed platform that brings together individuals, leaders, youth, elderly, entrepreneurs, organizations from all over the world in this spirit of global conversations, collaborations, co-creation, and looking at all aspects of creating a better future. And I must say, and I said it yesterday as well, I mean, these 9 days, this is the 9th day, but 8 days has showcased the multitude of passionate, courageous, empowered leaders, individuals, entrepreneurs, communities, and forces for good who really have solutions and innovations and ideas and are ready to step up and really create that future unified that we are looking to create. So that's also really, really profound. And it's in this era or stage that we're in now that has a lot of challenges and change and despair. There's so much hope and possibilities, and there really are. We are the solutions and the heroes that we are looking for. It's just that all the voices and all the projects who are heading in the same direction need to also have a surface and a platform to shed light on them, which is what Humanity Rising Summit is doing. Yesterday, we had a truly profound and insightful women's circle and conversation convened by Yanling Duan, who is the founder of Davos Block Base. And she had 12 amazing women leaders and entrepreneurs. And they talked around 3 different themes, from inheritance of timeless wisdom to systemic healing and action to holistic systemic redesign. And today is also exciting and something that I'm very passionate about, and that is tuning into the art of conversations. And I would say that this is something that bridges our past, our present, and our future. If we go back to, the Stone Age, when we were hunters and gatherers, one of the most important advancements of this time was the development of the spoken language. And this allowed for people to gather around fires and to share stories and cook together. And then in the 17th century, we had salons and parlours, which were places to increase knowledge through conversations and exchanging of ideas. So I truly see conversation as this bridge builder of effective communication, where you can surface all perspectives, maybe uniting around agreeing to disagree, or receiving a new point of view, or connecting and belonging, and achieving peace, conflict resolution, and cultivating that art of active listening, which is just as much part of the conversation as active speaking. And I also think it's an art that we need now more than ever, to help us navigate us from this polarization that is happening in the world, and to align us more in unity, or at least effectively and with compassion, align us with ways of convening our differences, increasing our understandings, revealing common grounds and similarities, and opening up for discussions of possible solutions. This is, of course, an art that I'm also passionate about, and it's also part of my profession as a facilitator, social change entrepreneur, and impact diplomat. And today's session and the Women's Circle, we have a lovely and diverse selection of passionate women and leaders who are coming together under the theme of living room conversations, with a consensus that healing divide starts with conversations. And Living Room Conversation is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2010, I think it was, and acts as an open source effort to rebuild respectful civil discourse across ideological, cultural, and party lines, while embracing core shared values. And it's based on a conversational model developed by dialogue experts in order to facilitate connection between people, despite their differences, and identify areas of common ground and sharing understanding and truly authentic conversations. I would think that these women also would like to inspire all of you listening and all of you viewing to create your own conversations, to really create this ripple of impact, the new ROI, ripple of impact, where you share conversations that are both maybe difficult to have, or at least feel that you have that sacred container to do it. And maybe today you'll get inspired and get some tools on how you can do that. Now, Living Room Conversation was founded by today's convener, Joan Blades, who is a domestic peace advocate and also founder of MoveOn.org and MomsRising.org. Her background also includes being a software entrepreneur, a co-founder of Berkeley Systems, and a mediator by training and inclination. And just a little bit more on Joan. In addition to this, she's a nature lover, artist, and a true believer in the power of citizens and our need to rebuild respectful civil discourse while embracing our shared core values. And you can listen to her TEDx talk, which has a title, Free Yourself from Your Filter Bubbles. Joan also has a co-convener today, Anita Sanches, a transformational leadership consultant, coach, and speaker, and she has spent 4 decades sharing Indigenous wisdom with executives and their teams all around the world. She's also the author of the bestseller, The 4 Sacred Gifts, that calls upon all of humanity to remember how to work and live together and reestablish connectedness, which hopefully we can be doing also today. She was named a 2020 World Changing Woman by Conscious Company, and she also has a TEDx talk that is called Humanity's Hope, Connecting People, Earth, and Spirit. And Joan and Anita are joined by these 5 knowledgeable, passionate change leaders, activists, and futurists today on the theme Living Room Conversations. So with that, I hand over the word to Joan Blades and Anita Sanches.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to be here, to be invited. And it's wonderful to be co-hosting this conversation with Anita, because we did start doing these conversations 10 years ago now, and they were originally around polarization politically, and they've become about so much more. Anita has helped us write some of the most powerful conversations we have, and her book, The Four Sacred Gifts, is, with the inspiration for saying, Anita, will you be my co-host, please? And I get to meet many of Anita's friends through this process, which is, I feel incredibly fortunate. Anita.
Yes, thank you. Yes, this conversation today is going to be with just amazing women. I think when you open it, they'll be saying their name and who they're with, correct? So I don't need to do that now. Great. I just want to make sure.
We should all
so
get
people,
on the screen here soon, I hope.
Okay, good, because I want to make sure people know how to not only hear and hopefully replicate their own conversation, but all of these women are just so worthy of seeing more about what they do and are contributing to the world. But this conversation, I'm so delighted Joan saw before the book was even written, and she heard about the prophecy, the Eagle Hoop prophecy. And it's a prophecy that came about in 1994 by a Mohican elder, Don Coyas. And in this vision he was told by Spirit that he was to call the people, the elders from all the different directions, all around the world, the four directions. And together they were to build a hoop, a sacred hoop, and hang 100 eagle feathers from it. And then put in there 4 gifts. It didn't tell them during that initial vision what the 4 gifts were, just bring everyone together. So as you can imagine, the call went out, 27 elders responded from all over the world. And in prayer and ceremony, in their different languages, they created this hoop and put the 4 gifts. And so the 4 gifts, I want to name them because we're going to be focusing on 2 of those gifts today in our conversation. So the 4 gifts that Spirit said, it's for all humanity. Use these gifts so that you will remember how to be in healthy relationship with yourself, other people, all of nature, the earth, and Spirit itself. So to create harmony and balance again. The 4 gifts are, the first, the power to forgive the unforgivable. And I just, little pause there, because although we're not going to be focusing on this one, listen to your heart, because you'll know what's calling you. So the power to forgive the unforgivable. The second gift is the power of unity that would take all of us to make a thriving world for all beings, 2-leggeds and all beings. And then the third gift is the gift of the power of healing. Healing is a process, wonderful thing every day to heal, so we can use our energy to be present and go forward. And then the fourth gift is the gift of the power of hope in action. So the 2 gifts today, and I'll turn it back to Joan to set it up, but the 2 gifts today that we're going to be focusing on are the gifts of hope and unity out of our various perspectives. And just as in this prophecy, it's no mistake that we have people on the panel from the 4 directions. That was important to have everyone represented here as best we can on a Zoom call to hear the different perspectives. So we'll be focusing on that. Unity, what does that mean to us and our experience of that? And then hope. Hope is something. Hope, what is that? What gives us hope? What gets in the way of hope? We'll be answering a number of questions. So with that, I just thank you, Joan, for calling forward these gifts. I'll tell you that the elders around the world are smiling because we know Spirit said these gifts belong to everybody. They're not for one, they are for us to reestablish our remembering that we're one hoop of life. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Anita. And I have learned so much through the conversations I've been able to have with people that have been teaching me for the last many years. But the first of those conversations, the forgiveness conversation, I think is the one that I remember the most deep learnings from. And I haven't been able to have all 4 of the conversations yet. That was the first one we wrote together. So I am totally excited about doing this with you and your friends today. A classic living room conversation is 2 friends with different viewpoints. Each invite 2 friends for a conversation. And I'm hoping we can have all our guests with us very soon here on the like as soon as possible on this panel, because in our living room, library, faith community, these are happening. The living room conversations, that's one place they happen. And right now they're all happening by video, wherever people are. 6 people is an ideal number because these are self-facilitated, and the guides for these conversations are all available at livingroomconversations.org. So you can have your own. We're trying to show what one of these conversations can look like. And I'm always kind of amazed by how deep they are able to go in a pretty short period of time. And we call them conversations, but it's a deep listening practice. It's not about persuasion. It's about really hearing each other and connecting. And when we start the conversations, we always start with introducing ourselves, and then the conversation agreements, which are really simple, basically what we learned in kindergarten. But it's, be curious and listen to understand. Conversation is much about listening as it is about talking. You might enjoy exploring how others experience this, have shaped their values. And see, I have my paper. I always do that when I'm at my actual living room conversations. And it goes around everybody in the circle. In that conversation, we'll read one of the guides. The second of the agreements is show respect and suspend judgment. People tend to judge one another. Setting judgment aside opens you up to learning from others and makes them feel respected and appreciated. Try to listen without interruption or crosstalk. Next, someone else will go, note any common ground as well as any differences. Look for areas of agreement or shared values that may arise, and take an interest in differing beliefs and opinions of others. Next, be authentic and welcome that from others. Share what's important to you. Speak from your experience. Be considerate to others who are doing the same. Be purposeful and to the point. Do your best to keep your comments concise and relevant to the questions you're answering. Be conscious that sharing airtime with other participants. And the last is own and guide the conversation. Take responsibility for the quality of your participation in the conversation as a whole. Be proactive in getting yourself and others back on track if needed, using agreed upon signal, like a timeout sign, if you feel the agreements are not being honored. And with those agreements, people all around the world have had some pretty deep conversations. And often the first conversation is the beginning of many. This is a practice. And there are individuals and faith communities all around the world that are doing this on a regular basis. So we would really love to get started on ours now, but I need to see our other guests. It's just Anita and I right now. And I'm really looking forward to meeting your guests, Anita. What would you add? Anything you add while we wait for our guests to arrive?
The other 5 women, can you put on your video and unmute yourself and join us? I think they'll find their way. Here they come. Reverend Deborah Johnson. They'll introduce more, but I'm just waiting for the other 4 to come on. We have 7 of us talking today and conversation.
And we need to be in gallery view because we want to see everyone's face.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're here.
Maybe I make that happen. Success.
Hi,
All
Anita. Hi, Joan.
right. Okay.
There we go.
So it would be great if the other folks that aren't part of the conversation weren't part of the gallery view. Is there any way then people can see the people that are in the conversation a little better?
I think our tech person needs to stay, George, maybe, but.
Yes, well, I have the gallery view on, and that's what I'm broadcasting. So
Okay.
you can choose your
So you
own
can't
view
take
because
away
you're
the other
panelists.
3 non-participants?
So if you want to have the conversation with Jim and Sabina as well, then they can turn on their camera.
No, we
We
want
were
to
hoping they wouldn't be part of the screen so that the faces of the people in the conversation would be what dominate the screen.
That's what I have turned on. We have the gallery view turned on.
Okay. I think
Okay.
that's the best we can do, Joan. So we'll just
All
let people know when you're doing your virtual conversation, it will just be the pictures of people who are actually in the conversation. And we have 7 amazing women here today. Go ahead, Joan.
Okay.
Go ahead, open.
So we start with each person sharing their name, where we live, and what drew you to this conversation. And I sort of feel like I've already done that part. And then one way to move around when you're by video, because you can't actually look at someone like in person, is then you just name the next person to do that. So I'm going to ask Shelley to do that, and then you can name the next person. Shelley, you're muted.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Shelley Alcorn. I am the CEO of Ubiquity University, as well as Association Futurist with Alcorn Associates Management Consulting. And I'm coming to you from a very small mining town in California, where I live close to my mom. And I just appreciate being here and being invited to participate. And I'm very much looking forward to the conversation. I'm going to move to Reverend Deborah Johnson. Would you please introduce yourself as well?
Well, thank you. I live in the Santa Cruz area of California. It's on the Monterey Bay, just out of it's on the Monterey Bay, just out of the Silicon Valley. Originally raised in Los Angeles, I am the founder of a spiritual community there called Inner Light Ministries. And I'm in this conversation because I think conversation is going to be the most important thing in terms of us as a society in transformation. I was pleased to be invited by my longtime friend and colleague, Anita Sanches, with whom I've done professional diversity work for many, many years. And I'm glad to be here.
You get to pick the next person.
Oh, yes. Liana. Liana? Is that
Lina.
the right way to pronounce it?
It's Lina.
Lina.
It's Lina.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right, Lina.
Yes, thank you. Hello, I'm Lina Ravindran Green. I'm the co-founder of an organization called Angels of Impact, which is based in Singapore, and also a board member of the Patricia Locke Foundation here in the US. I'm an ethnic Indian, a minority from Singapore, I was born and raised there, but I'm currently living in Cupertino, California. And I'm here in this conversation because I love Anita so much, and I love her book. And I'm also a member of the Baha'i Faith. And the Baha'i Faith is all about being a servant of humanity, and love, unity, and peace are such fundamental conversations for us. So I cannot but be here today. So thank you for having me. And I'm going to pass it to GA.
Hi everyone, my name is Shia Bastida. I am 18 years old and I am from the Otomi Toltec Indigenous people from the highlands of central Mexico. I am currently based in New York City and I've been living here for 5 years. I am one of the main organizers for the Fridays for Future movement in New York, and I also work with Fridays for Future organizing strikes nationally and internationally. And I am recently the founder of an organization called Re-Earth Initiative, where we focus on reconnecting and all the reconnecting, reestablishing our relationship with the earth across the world with different youth. So I'm really happy and honored to be here in conversation with amazing women. I will pass it on to Annalise.
That's right. Thank you so much. My name is Annalise Smitsman. I'm calling from the Netherlands, where I was born, but I normally live in Mauritius. I'm not able yet to go home because there are no planes. So this is why I'm calling from the Netherlands today. I'm the founder and CEO of Earthwise Center, and that's all about listening very deeply to Mother Earth and then working with her wisdom and putting that into systems design, to really developing our future creative leadership based on a planetary consciousness. I'm here in this conversation today because of my sister Anita, and we are doing very wonderful work together And I always love whenever Anita invites me, I'm there. So thank you so much, Anita and Joan as well. I'm delighted, to contribute today and to be here in this larger conversation with all of you and everyone who's listening as well. Thank you.
Anita, do you want to say a word about where you are? I realize I'm in Berkeley, California. Yes. That's the part I missed.
Okay, yeah, and I'm in Boulder, Colorado, just in the foothills of the Rockies. It's quite beautiful. And I must say that on the screen is even more beautiful. It's so wonderful, when you can bring people together that didn't know each other. So now you will. It's wonderful. Back to you, Joan. Do you want to get us started then on well, we've been starting already, but moving forward?
Yes. Okay, so the first round of the conversation is just an opportunity to get to know each other a little bit better on some of our deeper values, and for everyone to just take maybe about a minute to talk about one of three things. You can respond to what are your hopes and concerns for your family, community, and country, or what would your best friend say about who you are, or what sense of purpose, mission, or duty guides you in your life. And just, often this one we can do by asking the next person, or we can do it Quaker style, where people speak up as they feel moved. And I'll just get it started so people have one sense of it. My hopes and concerns right now, this conference is very much about them. We're in a time of huge change. People are very resistant to change, and we've made a big change. And the future is very unclear. And I have tremendous hope that we learn from this time about our connections and our what really is critical and what's most important, and we move forward to a world that we feel like has a great future. And my concern, or really even fear, is that we won't do that. We will, separate and, collectively not grasp this moment. Which is why I'm so committed to doing this work of, just one small conversation at a time, having people connect in a meaningful way. So that's
I'll
my
go next. So we'll just see if we can keep it moving, Joan, and then we'll call if it doesn't move. So I'm going to go after, right now at the moment, is passion. So I have all my life, from my Aztec grandmother and mother, and being with elders in the Osage Nation, and just growing up, I had this incredible passion of always weaving Indigenous wisdom with whatever's happening. So sometimes it was surprising to people, especially when you do a PhD program. Back when I did it, they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm doing my truth, the truth that other people need to know up to, or at least explore, right? But anyway, so I just love that, and part of how I weave that in is to inspire people to discover and trust their gifts, so that they can be a life-giving force, not only to themselves, but other people, nature, earth itself. And that I think is all the passion around us being one hoop of life. And so, in spite of facts to the contrary, I'm delighted about this conversation today, because I still have hope in the face of recognizing, not denying, all the divisions that exist. I believe that that is humanity's hope, from my perspective, for us to understand and care and even love each other as relatives. So someone else want to go next? Or I will call if you don't. Okay.
I'll go.
Good. Lina.
Yeah. So for what really drives me a lot is issues around justice an issue around unity on race unity. So, I think the elephant in the room, so to speak, that we all need to talk about is what's happening in the world today, in America with the injustices around what happened with George Floyd, and what's it's a very painful reality. Because to some extent, when COVID happened, I was hoping that this would shake the world up to actually recognize that we need to be one with Earth and one with people. And there was a lot of inklings and signs that we were moving in that direction of oneness. But then you realize the ugly side of humanity still exists. So I'm a little bit moved to share a prayer, if that's okay with you. Is that okay?
Yes.
Just a very quick prayer. It's a Baha'i prayer, so I'm just going to offer that. O Lord, Thou art the remover of every anguish and the dispeller of every affliction. Thou art he who banisheth every sorrow and setteth free every slave. The redeemer of every soul, O Lord. Grant deliverance through thy mercy, and reckon me among such servants of thine as have gained salvation. So my hope for humanity is that we connect to each other as one soul, and that the pain of one is the pain of all.
Okay. Next. Shea, would you like to go next? Are you going to go, Deborah? Rabdi?
Yeah, I was going to go. So my sense of purpose is really around purpose. I'm not trying to sound redundant, but that I think that that's one of the things that each and every person needs to understand. And that's part of why I'm here, I think, not just to try to fulfill my own purpose, but part of my purpose is helping people understand that they have a purpose, that each and every person is valued, has a reason for being, is entitled to be happy and fulfilled and creative, and to stand in that sense of entitlement and to work towards whatever it's going to take to create a world that's free enough to actually allow that. And that sense of purpose is not just an individual purpose, but a collective purpose, and unleashing that extraordinary power that is being squelched and abused. And I would say that because of my background and different aspects of my social demographic profile, but particularly growing up gay in a Pentecostal church, where, well, I won't even go into that. Let's just say it took a lot to give myself permission to feel that I had purpose, let alone stand and step into spiritual leadership.
Thanks, Rabdi. Go ahead, Shea.
So I want to thank everybody again for holding this space. I would say that, as a teenager who is deciding what I'm going to do with my life, just going into college, I have found that because of all the injustices in the world, my purpose is different than what it would be if there weren't happening, of course. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to learn French and move to Paris and open my own dog boutique or something. But, I suffered from the impacts of the climate crisis firsthand. I am an Indigenous woman, an immigrant woman from Mexico who is living in the US. So all of these things, all of my experiences have led me to see that we have to proactively fight for the things that are right. Because when you have a truth and you fight for what is your truth, you can never be wrong. And that is, I understood that I found my purpose when I realized that what I want to do in life is help not only myself, but help others. So in my work for climate justice, it pains me to see that the movement is still so targeted towards blaming the consumer, and it's so targeted towards why didn't you turn off the light, or why didn't you recycle? When at this point we can recycle our way out of the climate crisis. And it is indigenous wisdom. It is, philosophy of we take care of the earth because the earth takes care of us, is the unifying process that is going to lead us towards our purpose, that is going to lead us towards what our full potential can be after we, do this important work. Because right now we are in a moment where humanity hasn't matured collectively. Our consciousness level is not at the level where it has to be for us to actually enjoy each other's company, each other's unity, each other's potential. So it is about us in conversation, deepening our understanding of all the different issues that are going on, so that we can have more holistic solutions, more holistic processes, because only then will humanity mature towards the point where we want it to be. And it's not about me being, 18 and maturing and somebody else being 60 and already being mature. It's about all of us maturing collectively, because there's a lot of people who have not gone in there, even if they have lived a long life. So I thank you for making this conversation intergenerational, because we have to recognize that if we want youth to grow up and be who they want to be, you have to tell them you can be who you want to be at whatever age you are.
Thank you, Shea. So either Shelley or Annalise, whichever.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. Wow, I love what you just shared. So true, and that aligns beautifully when I'll share a little bit about my hopes and concerns as well. And because they're actually the same. The hope is that during times of crisis and difficulties and challenges, something within us is actually rising up and is bringing us together, through which we realize that we are so much bigger than perhaps the perspective that we've been holding. My concern is at the same time, and it addresses also that hope, is that if we're so busy chattering all the time and busy doing, that we actually are not present to what's actually coming forth in those moments. I have a great faith and hope that I always say, the future wants to win. Life is the future. So it's like the future is reaching into us right now, because the future is life. Life is the future. And it really wants us to learn and to grow and to get this. But we do need to also meet that movement of life in the same way. And that means we need to be available. We need to be present. We need to be receptive. And also even letting go of we've had so many ideas even about unity itself, to be courageous, to really, really listen, and to just say yes to being that possibility for that more beautiful world that our hearts knows, and then to fully commit to that. And that's for me what purpose is as well. It's the purpose to be alive for that process. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Hopes and concerns and perspective is such a large question. So here in my early 50s and wonder about those things that brought me to this moment, and what am I going to learn from this moment today with you all. I attended 11 different schools before I graduated from high school when I was a young person. So change, large change and small change is sort of the theme that's run through my life. And because of that, I've spent a lot of years studying and looking at change moments in history, change moments in technology, change moments in humanity. And we stand at such a crucial moment. And I'll be honest, I'm here today and I'm feeling heartbroken. Because the things that are already on the way in terms of climate change, in terms of the rise of artificial intelligence, that can help and also create more inequality in the world. The situation going on in the United States, when you look at COVID-19, when you look at all of these things, they're all interconnected. It's all systemic. It's all related. And it's really big. We have organizations, we have corporations, we have nonprofits, we have educational institutions, we have businesses and people of faith and people of color. And somehow we get so trapped in our own silos, in our own moments, in our own lives. We don't take the time to look out across horizontally as well as vertically. I am a person who tried to come out in the late 90s, early 2000s, finally ended up doing so in 2018 as a member of the LGBTQIA community. But sitting here in my whiteness, I am very aware that my experiences are different. I have the privilege of hiding if I want to. I want to engage in conversations that are meaningful, that can be difficult, that are intersectional, that acknowledge that in moments like these, we have the capacity to do one of two things. We have the capacity to join together, to be honest, to be authentic. I don't want a non-color world. I don't want to transcend color. I want to embrace color. I want to educate. I want to do what I can to create a better world. At the same moment, moments like these can be violent. They can be regressive. They can reach back for some mythological moment where everything was perfect, if things could just turn back the clock. And that's just not reality. The danger is nationalism. The danger is the other. The danger is ethnocentrism. We see the dangers. We know what the dangers are. If we can be conversational and contributive, if we can think of solutions, if we can contribute to creating a better world, that's what I'm here for. And my career has been varied. I have done a lot of things. I've been a CEO, I've been the coffee girl, I've been a legislative advocate, I've worked with members, I've worked with volunteers. Now I'm in education because I see it as all connected and as all one. And I feel honored to have been invited to be a part of this conversation. I don't think I'll say anything that would put Ubiquity in a bad light, or certainly, hopefully not my consulting practice. But I am here as an individual, and my comments are my own. So thank you for allowing me to introduce myself, and let's see what we can do to
Thank you.
take this moment and transform it.
Thank you. So now we go into the second round, which is the primary focus of this conversation. And all of the 4 sacred gifts are separate conversations at Living Room Conversations, but because we only have this one opportunity with you all, though many people do say, let's have another conversation. And I can tell right now, if you guys want to have another conversation, I'm in. But we have 2 questions from the Unity Living Room Conversation and 2 questions from the Hope Living Room Conversation. I'm going to read the introduction to the Unity Conversation and the 2 questions, and then we can go around and just take 2 minutes to respond to one of the 2 questions. So that's what we're going to ask after this. So Unity introduction is, what is the power of unity? The power to come together with similar and across diverse communities seems more and more elusive at this time. Our alienation from people around us maintains an ever-growing depression, addiction, physical and psychological abuse, crime, violence, suicide, indicators of spirits in distress, in despair. We are caught in a giant social and political arguments about the symptoms of our disunity without touching on our heartfelt desire for harmony and peace with one another and the earth. In the face of all this, the gift of the power of unity calls us to find our way back to a deep knowing of interconnection and community. However, the challenge is to trust in unity when we have had a history of experiences that lead us to distrust and feel separate from others. The 2 questions we have for this particular topic are, what is your experience of unity? When have you joined with others like and different from you, and why? And the second is, it's one or the other, because we could spend the whole time on this, right? So we want to make sure everyone's voice is heard. The second is, what are the benefits or detriments of being in unity with others, for yourself, for the other, and for the community? So those are the 2 key questions. I put the questions in the chat earlier, but that's like way at the top of the chat now if you need to look at them. I can see if I can put them in there again. I'll try to do that. I'm trying to be focused on this conversation and not on the amazing chat that's going on in the right. And I'm kind of going, this is not a living room conversation if I'm looking over there, because it's about us really being present to each other. So I apologize for a minute while I try to do that, but I hope it helps you all have it in front of you. And Anita, I leave you to leading while I do that a little bit.
Okay, you do that. And I'll just say, so you just pick one of the questions and respond. And sometimes in living room conversations, use a timer and sometimes not, but I'm going to do that for the 2 minutes. So that way, hopefully, when we get through both areas, we can have a little bit of more back and forth. So I'll just go ahead and start off with unity. Especially in this time when there's such difficulty. So I don't want to transcend the suffering. It'd be like not being present. But I do know that every day, a couple of things come to my mind about unity and what it means for me. And so I love 2-leggeds, I love human beings, but it's not the first thing that comes to my mind. Every morning it's that, it's a new day. And having grown up with, grandmother says, it's a new day. Every day is a new day, and to remember that things do shift and it's a new day. And then an experience that, although happened to me when I was only 4 years old, really stays alive for me, which was my grandmother. I was staying overnight on the weekend with my sisters, and she got us up early in the morning, just as the sun was rising. We stood by her garden near the sunflowers. And my grandmother did all sorts of things like that and ceremonies and stuff that other grandmothers didn't do. So it was like, okay. And then every hour she'd bring us back and we'd stand there in silence for 5 minutes, but we kept moving like the sunflowers. And to this day, I'm reminded that sometimes when I hear things that see a discord, is to remember nature, because all day long, as you can imagine, we turned toward the sun the whole time. And then we came in and had dinner when it was dark, and then she took us back outside and we were like, Grandma, we can't see. And then she turned on the flashlight and we were all huddled together looking at each other, but we looked over at the sunflowers and they were looking at each other too. Which again is a lesson that even in the darkness of these struggles that we're going through, to celebrate that we're alive and that we turn to who's near you and together, you know, move forward. And then there's a new day and there's a new day and you just keep moving. So to me, when I think of unity, I do think of all the amazing communities I'm a part of. What comes to my heart first is the unity with Earth that allows me to be. So in the face of all these other things, it really helps me to really have a sense of that that's not outside of me, that's part of me, and then extend it outward, because I am the Earth and the Earth is me. I am you, you are me, in terms of relatives. Okay, I'll stop with that. It's just 5 seconds over 2 minutes. Who would like to go next? And you could pick any one of the questions. You can't cover all of them.
I'll go. I'll speak to the benefits and the detriments of unity. I really believe, from my spiritual perspective, that the only thing that ever needs to be healed is just a sense of separation. That's it. Whether it's separation from each other, separation from our good, separation from the divine, our health, like whatever that is. And it's out of that sense of separation that we get into the deep othering. I think most addictive behaviors and self-destructive behaviors are where we've othered our own selves. And that part of the secret to the fulfillment of our existence on the planet is really understanding our deep interconnectedness with each other. I call it oneness. And the benefit of that is that we unleash our power, we unleash our potential, and we live in our most natural state, not the norms that we have created, but our most natural state. Mm-hmm. Part of the consequence of that, though, is that it's going to mean change. It's going to mean change. That there's nothing wrong with expressing our variety and our diversity, but our ego sense gets its identity from contrast and comparison. So it's really threatening to the ego when you start talking about unity, because part of the reason why I'm me is that I'm not you. And if my story of life is such that my own sense of myself is built around how much I'm not like you and how different you are than I am, then it's a scary thing to embrace you. It's a scary thing to change the systems and everything. You know, what does that say about me? If your relationship is also a marriage, what have we now done to marriage? There goes the neighborhood. And I know that it's like we used to joke and say, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. It's like this world of unity is the heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there, to leave the stuff that's been holding us down to actually make the transformation.
Whew, breathe that in. Whoever would like to go next? Go ahead, Shea.
So I very much agree with Reverend Deborah Johnson. I think that, you know, when I grew up with this philosophy of reciprocity with Mother Nature, I thought everybody in the world thought the way that I thought. When you grow up, you think that everybody has your same mindset. And I felt connected. So I thought everybody else in the world felt connected. When I saw that people started polluting, destroying Mother Earth, exploiting Mother Earth, my bubble burst, because I realized that not all of us in the world were as connected as I wished. So that was my experience with, I felt in unity with Mother Earth, but I didn't see that unity happening worldwide. So that is when the fight for unity starts. That's where the fight for oneness starts. The process of unifying others starts. And that's why, you know, in the youth climate movement, all of us have so many different skills, perspectives, homes, you know, and we have had trouble with what does being the ideal activist mean? Does it mean being vegan, which is like inaccessible for a lot of people? Does it mean striking, which is illegal in a lot of countries? So no, being in the climate movement doesn't mean that we all have to be the same. It means that we have to embrace each other's differences. I have a friend who is magnificent at you know, graphic design. So she does all the graphic design for the movement. And maybe she doesn't have time to strike because she's still in college, but she is helping the movement in her own way. So I realized that unity is about accepting everything that is wrong to make it right. And it's also about embracing each other's differences so that we can work as a collective ecosystem more efficiently. So that is my experience with unity, when I thought that everybody was united, but we weren't. So that is when the actual journey starts.
This particular question goes to something that has really been powerful. I've had a moment as a co-founder of Move On, the run-up to the Iraq War. I was part of organizing a worldwide peace protest that, you know, it's in a week, this amazing, these vigils all around the world in opposition to the war with Iraq happened. It was amazing. And it felt so powerful. And it's something I return to again and again, because it did not stop us going to war in Iraq. And so I believe in the power of unity, and I ask, what is it that what's going to cause us to be effective? And I guess this is where I came to, these small conversations where people really come to love each other, honestly. It's about when we really love everyone, then we have real unity. But it just is something that still breaks my heart that we failed at that time. And I want us to succeed this time. That's the dream.
Hi. So I'm going to talk about my experiences with unity. I grew up in Singapore. It's a young nation, had the ideal of unity, and we were all going to be multicultural, all living together in harmony, and to some extent we are. But as a minority myself, I saw the realities of discrimination, so I had gender and racial discrimination. And then I went on a pursuit. I said, oh, maybe there's something better out there in the world, and somehow scraped together money and went off to work at the UN. And I thought, the UN, that's where we're trying to get world peace, and this is where I'm going to find my people, you know? And then I realized the reality of racism was there too, gender, sexism, etc. And then I said, America, the land of the free, this is the place where they fought, so I'm going to come here. And I came here, and then I saw the realities of what was happening. And then I realized it's everywhere. And people always used to call me very naive, that I believed in unity and believed in peace. And I reached a point in my life when I thought maybe they were right. You know, maybe this is a dream that would never happen. And that's the time when I came across the Baha'i faith. And in the Baha'i writings, we are told that peace is inevitable. Either we embrace it or we kill each other and realize the only way to live is to live in unity and oneness. And totally agree with you, Reverend Deborah. We have this concept of unity. There's different aspects of it. Unity in diversity is key. Unity and justice have to go hand in hand. And unity is a oneness. It's a oneness where we feel as one. We are as one soul, as one body. If I cut off my arm, my whole body suffers. That's the extent of which we need to be connected. And that when we do, we will have peace. It will be inevitable. In fact, the faith says the well-being of humanity, its peace and security are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. And so for me, it was like, you know, finding out that there were people out there, both Baha'is, non-Baha'is. I've seen, you know, I love being in communities like this because it's in a community of people who believe that it is possible, but at the same time understand the reality. And what CA, I think I hope I pronounced your name right, GA, very, very profound words you said about maturity. Yes, we haven't reached that stage of maturity, but we will get there. And so that's my experience of unity.
Thank you. Okay, unity. Similar as what Anita shared, for me, unity, the experience of unity is what's actually always there. It's breathing life, it's life. And so for me, life is a unified reality. It's amazing that now even scientifically, you know, we have ways of explaining that. So if you see that life is a unified reality, there is no out, there is nothing exists in a vacuum. Even a thought of being separated can only be there because of a unified field. It's kind of ironic. Yeah. Look deeply at the nature of pain and suffering. Isn't it there because we are, if you're missing connection, then what is it within you that knows that you're missing something? So even hurt itself is there, ironically, because we are unified, because we are one. So when you really, really deeply accept that there is no out, nothing exists in a vacuum, there is actually no separate. Even thinking ourselves separate doesn't make us separate. You know, if there's one thing that our planet is showing us right now, is that in those days when we thought we were pursuing this kind of freedom of I can do what I want, I can conquer whatever land I want, there's no consequence, it is my right. Yeah, we've got our responsibilities. If what Mother Earth is showing us is that that's a big illusion. That is nothing to do with freedom. Perhaps freedom is realizing very deeply how we are really are unified, we are interconnected, we are interdependent. Yeah? And that when so for me, unity is not something that I go out there to experience with people. It's given. That's, to me, that's, you know, that's the ground state, it's the foundation. But in the experiences with people, it's about reminding that and seeking ways together to build our world from that understanding.
Thank you so much for sharing. When it comes to unity, the times in my life where I have been able to coalesce with a group of people around a value, around a vision, around a mission, regardless of how we thought we might accomplish that, those are the moments that stand out for me. Staff members I've worked with, friends that I have, things that we've been able to do. But I think as we look at division, when we look at what's happening around us, we have to tap into a deep sense of empathy if we're going to get through this. It's very easy for me to sit here in my office in a safe space and talk about unity and transcendence and those things that we aspire to. It's wholly another to go into a store and have someone glare at you because you're wearing a mask and they think you're being political. I would love for us to be unified. I would love for us to transcend. And I think that it is possible to do both simultaneously, to transcend while not taking our eyes off the reality that we are confronted with. And if we don't reach that sense of empathy for the other, and if we don't understand that some of our reactions are just us being humans, I don't think we're going to get very far. And we need to be practical and aspirational in every moment that in which we stand. So, thanks.
So normally we would go on and have more conversation about unity, but in this particular living room conversation, because we also wanted to touch on hope, we are going to read the introduction to the hope and have a couple minutes to talk about that. And then we're just going to have another conversation someday if we want it. So the introduction to the hope conversation is, instead of resigning ourselves to just what is, we can dream and build new possibilities. This is hope in action. In this way, hope is an energy source that resides in each of us. It is a type of knowing beyond the five senses of touch, smell, sight, hearing, and taste. Once we hold the hope, the vision or dream of something new, better, and more life-giving in our mind and heart, we are compelled to move toward it. We have a choice to keep hope alive or to give in to doubt and let hope fade away, calling it a waste of time, useless daydreaming, and Pollyanna thinking. And the questions we chose from the hope conversation are, what is hope? What do you have hope for? Describe. That's one question you can answer. Another is, what are the benefits or dangers of having dreams or visions for something to get better? So if either of those speak to you, take 2 minutes and we will be listening.
I'll go ahead and start my timer. Because just when you said that, all of a sudden it popped up, because I know hope is an energy source. However, I want to say what I have hope for is because I understand what it is to be hopeless. And I realize what an illusion that was. And it comes from real experience of 9 years of sexual abuse. And then the race-related murder of my father. He was mistaken for a black man. White man and black man in the 60s had a fight. And the white man returned and just saw the profile of my father and killed him. And so at 13, I already have these two major things. And it was a dream that helped keep me going, which was a dream at the 3-year-old I still have to this day, that I knew when I would grow up, I was going to be one of these stick people on this earth. And what was amazing about it at that age is that we had our hands on each other's heart. But the depths of the suffering that I experienced so young, I've forgotten. I allowed it to slip away, to think that all that pain was my identity. And so at age 13, I tried to kill myself. And I'm so grateful every day that, when I was doing that and heaving and just praying and asking God, and my family circling the bed, and just like, I want to be here. I'm supposed to be here, to understand that hopelessness is that even is an illusion. It feels so real. I mean, that's why I'm telling you the depths of what I experienced it, because it felt that, but because of the separation again, that's where it connects with unity, because I truly believe, because of the depths of the suffering, that it was me. And luckily when I didn't die, and I began immediately, that dream came on more and more. And it was like a vision, a lifelong, some are short dreams, some are long dreams, but this is a lifelong that has pulled me, that has drawn me, the language I didn't have as a 3-year-old, but now I have as adult. And it shifts over time, but mostly it is, I do bring hearts and minds together all over the world, in my work, in my service that I do, and it's life-giving. And so I have hope that even in the darkest, dark, horrendous kind of experience, the possibility, the capacity for us to transform, and we don't do that just on our own, but we do it with the help of going inward to our own wisdom, to the wisdom of Indigenous elders and other wisdom keepers, to the wisdom of nature, to the wisdom of other two-leggeds, to all of that. It's all here for us because we're all part of that hoop of life. So I have great hope for this hoop of life and for my part and others' parts in this.
Well, I'll follow that because Anita is part of the reason I have hope. I mean, it's, you know, the beauty of the conversations that have been written with her partnership guidance. There's so many opportunities to feel like it's impossible what we're trying to do. And yet somehow, the faith leaders have been teaching me, the language of seeing the divinity in everyone. And I think when we're able to touch everyone's divinity, that's perhaps when we can arrive. It seems impossible, yet this practice of being with people at this very intimate level reminds me that it's amazing what people can do when they are in connection. And that gives me hope. So thank you all for being here.
I love the pauses in between. And ask people when they do their living room conversation, make sure to have time for the pauses, because I just feel all of it in every cell of my body, integrating what each person has said all the way along. And with that, whoever wishes to go next.
I think of hope as an acronym of the letters, that it's heart open, possibility, and engagement. That those are the things that we need to get some hope, to keep some hope, to stop from losing some hope. Keeping our heart open, staying in possibility consciousness, and keeping engaged. And I'm going to come at this from a slightly different angle, which is that I think we sometimes lose hope because we forget the nature of the healing process. Everything, unlike where we're trying to go, has to come up to be healed. You can't heal what you don't feel. And a lot of times in that process of healing, it looks like things are going in the opposite direction. It's like if I cut my hand, that process of healing, it's going to get a scab, it might get pus, it looks ugly, but that is the process to healing. And so often when we see things that we don't like, even the uprisings and the things that are going on now, even COVID, I had to joke and say, wow, those of us who are really praying that humanity would wake up and that the earth would get a bit of a break and we could stop with all the mass consumerism. I serve on the Pachamama Alliance board with Anita. And it's like, who knew COVID? It's like, you never know what that catalyst is going to be to actually help create the container and the environment for the things that you're hoping for to come forth. But we get so mad at the catalyst. We get so mad at the thing that's bringing it about that we lose sight of the fact that it's actually creating the experience for us to go where it is that we want to go. So don't get stuck. Don't get stuck because you can't heal what you don't feel. We can't heal what we don't feel. So you got to feel it, which sometimes means recreating it, going back in the pain in order to take the action, because pain pushes until vision pulls.
So I'm going to jump in here since I love what you just said. And it was exactly kind of around what I was going to say. Hope is actually the reason for living. You know, hope is what gives you that ability not to despair. And as you rightfully said, it's a process. And the analogy that is very, very powerful to use is that of a mother birthing a child, right? You know, the child grows within you, but you have to go through that pain before the beautiful child is born. You know, there is this, but people want the beautiful child and not the pain, right? But I think when we have the understanding that this is part of the process, then you can be energized to go on and empowered to go on, because you know that the good and the bad will exist together. And that was for me a very important turning point, like I mentioned earlier, when I came to the Baha'i faith, recognizing that peace is inevitable. It's just a matter of whether the choice of humanity, whether we want to embrace it or whether we want to kill each other off before we figure it out. Well, we seem to have chosen the other path. And in the end, we will learn. The scabs will be formed, the healing will be done. But when you have the hope of that vision at the end of the tunnel, that something beautiful can be born, you will have that hope, just like you, Anita, right? As a child, having all that feeling, you wanted to give up your life, but having that hope and that vision. I know you tell the stories about your uncle, you know, telling you these stories. That stories, I'm sure, were at the back of your mind in terms of guiding you to a higher purpose, guiding to you, like Testia says, a unity with the universe that speaks within you. So I think I would say, to me, hope is the fundamental essence of life. And that is what drives us forward.
I'll go now because I'm really inspired by what has been said. And it gives me hope that other people see the world as something that is going to, you know, become better because of us, in spite of the things that are going on. Because a lot of the time people tell us, youth climate activists, that we give them hope. And it's like there's no other option for us. And that doesn't mean that we are necessarily hopeful. I am, but I don't know if all my, you know, co-organizers are. Because the reason why we do this work is because I realize that my kids may never be able to go to a beach, because beaches take thousands of years to form, but they are going to take 10 years to go underwater. And for me, realizing the pain of losing all these things is what makes me act. And acting, seeing the power of coming together, seeing the power of innovation, recognizing the importance of going back to our original teachings rather than forward to something unknown, is what gives me hope. So sometimes you start your work because you are not, you know, hopeful about what's going to happen. But once you start doing this work and realize all the beautiful things that we can actually create, then you become hopeful. So we have to use hope as a verb all the time. It has to be something that we have to exercise. It's like an outcome of something. And out of hope comes my stubborn optimism. And I've heard Christiana Figueres, who is the architect of the Paris Agreement, talk about stubborn optimism. And it means being sure about the good outcome of your actions. And my stubborn optimism is what I have hope that other people will embody stubborn optimism. Because only by us really imagining in 2050 we are going to live in a better world, then that's what's going to happen. If we think by 2050 we're all going to be underwater and burned up, that's what's going to happen. So we need to be stubborn optimists. We need to have hope in and faith in our spirits, in our power of unity, in our power of dialogue. So that's my stance on hope, and inspiration is like a big part of it.
I love that. Wonderful. Thank you. Hope for me means love's got my back. And so hope, for me, it's got nothing to do with the mind. It's got nothing to do with positive thinking. When I have really ironically felt hope, most hope in my life, or probably in some of my most desperate moments, the darkest moments, the greatest challenges, when I felt like, how am I going to go through this? Where am I going to get the strength from? And then precisely in those moments, it's like something, sometimes a little inner voice, sometimes the smell of someone passing by, a memory, a little dream. It's in those moments that hope, it's like hope shows up. So I show up to hope. So I became hopeful in hope itself, as this incredible power that I feel that is love. It's love that has our back, and that when we need it the most, it will reach in, and it will help us to hold a perspective. And I think in this time right now, you have to be a little bit insane to stand for this great world that we say all is possible. I realize as well, we say in these worlds, believing in this more beautiful world, some people may think, really that sounds idealistic, or no. So hope is also that craziness to say, you know what, no matter how crazy things look out there, I'm going to be even more crazy than that. And yeah, I'm alive for that. Thank you.
Well spoken. Welcome, fellow crazy one. You know, for me, hope is sort of the opposite of nihilism. We're going to do everything we can, individually and collectively, if we make good decisions, to attempt to manifest the world we want to manifest. I am not convinced that we are going to be able to overcome some of the worst effects of climate change at this point, or overcome other challenges. But the possibility of prevailing is not what hope is. The possibility of prevailing is not what hope is. Hope for me is not gentle. Hope for me is fierce. Hope for me is what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's what gets me in front of my computer. It's what drives me to do the work that I do. Not in victory, but in maximizing every moment that I have to give back to whoever I possibly can. And that is the hope that changes things. You know, I have experienced mental and emotional and physical violence in my life. So what? I get back up. Some days I wonder if it's worth it. So what? Get back up. Some days I don't think I see things like George Floyd, and I just get angry. But you know what? That's hopeful. I'm hopeful that people are angry. I'm hopeful that people are standing up. I am hopeful for this next generation. I am hopeful for my trans brothers and sisters, for all of us. That's what I'm hopeful for. I'm hopeful for men. I'm hopeful for women. I'm hopeful for my cats when they get on my face and go, time to eat. This is what I'm here for. Hope is action. Hope is faith. Hope is what gets you going, that steel in your back. when you're faced with things you can't overcome, if you can't overcome it, then you accept it, you deal with it, you put it in, and you decide to do something different next time. You go around it, you go under it, you go through it. And that for me is what hope is. That's what we need to have as men, as women, as beings, as my four-legged friends. That is what we must hang on to for the next 10 years, 20 years, as things get harder. Now is not the time for nihilism. Now is not the time for giving up. Now is not the time for believing that everything's going to be okay. Now is the time for hope, to do something about it, to get together and make a change. That's what hope is for me.
All right. So thank you. Thank you all. We are supposed to wrap this up so that everyone else can wrap us up. So we have to do this in 15 minutes. That's the part that I'm trying to hold as I follow the guide. And I'm saying this because I'm hoping that people that are watching are going, oh my gosh, I've got to have those conversations. Just saying it's easy and you have a deep opportunity to connect with people. So the last round is reflecting on the conversation. And we've each got 2 minutes to answer one of the following questions. What was most meaningful or valuable to you in this living room conversation? Or what learning or new understanding or common ground was found on the topics? Or how has this conversation changed your perception of anyone in the group, including yourself? And finally, is there a next step you would like to take based upon the conversation you just had? And that's how a living room conversation closes. And whoever would like to is invited to start.
I'll go ahead and start. Almost the silence I want to have for 2 minutes. It's so beautiful. Not only the words, the energy of you, and the silences in between. So what I'm taking away is a filling up, and I attribute it when listening. That's part of what I'm reminded, taking away, that listening is something. So yes, I shared some things, but listening is so potent. And so just hearing each one of you and what you had to share is filling me up with a sense of myself, with a sense of a part of the whole, with a sense of the divine. And it's a good day to be alive. And it's just nice hearing from all of you, because I know that each day is a good day to be alive, in spite of all the other things happening. and I do love the insanity. Everyone had a little smile about when you brought up the insanity. So here's to love, insanity and love, because it will prevail. And I think I have just a few more seconds. I have to say, one of the things I wanted to bring is love, how powerful it is. So I think you may have read 200 years ago, the Choctaw and the Navajo sent $170 to Ireland to help them with the starvation and stuff. And then just in the last couple of weeks, the Irish collected 1.8 million and sent it to the Navajo and the Choctaw. And to me, we can talk about all the divisions, but that's like love, the prevailing of that for 200 years, not forgotten and expanding. So here's to all of you and the love that you bring in my life. Thank you for being here.
Sure, I'll go next. I think the biggest learning here for me in this conversation, and I'm not surprised because Anita, I know the kind of conversations you pull together, is the diversity in this conversation. It's very, very powerful. And I think the other takeaway is you get a group of women together, and what are we talking about? Love, nurturing, bringing about a better world, so that was very heartwarming for me. But the other thing that I just want to state, the uniqueness of this panel, is we have two Indigenous voices with us as well, Anita and GA, and that doesn't happen very often. And I think that needs to be understated because there is a lot of, like GA was mentioning, about going back to the wisdom of the past. There is a lot of Indigenous wisdom that we can learn from. There is a lot of Indigenous voices that really need to be heard. Today, only 10 cents to every $100 goes to Indigenous causes. So I think this is one of the most profound and powerful differences of this conversation. I've been involved in many, and I think many of you might have been zoomed out with lots of Zoom conversations and conferences. But I just wanted to put it out there because, thank you for that gift, Anita, that you bring, that you have this ability to bring voices from all the different corners of the world, but at the same time be able to give that platform for us to listen and hear the Indigenous wisdoms and voices. And it's a real pleasure, Jay. I've learned so much. Most of my notes were from you. I loved, you're talking about the human maturity, and now I've learned a new word from you, stubborn optimism. I love it, and I'm going to use it. Thank you.
I guess I'll go. I wanted to thank everybody because it feels like my heart is bigger now. And that always happens to me when I have amazing conversations or when amazing things are happening. For example, when we got on the September 20th climate strike, 300,000 people marched in the streets of New York. And my heart felt bigger in that time because I felt everybody coming together. And that's what it feels like right now. So I want to thank everybody who's watching, and I want to thank everybody who's here present, because even though we can't be together, we're still together in a different way. And my reflection from this is that, like Anita was saying, and love doesn't end. So you can love more than maybe you think you can. And we have to be proactive in loving each other, in loving ourselves, in loving the earth. And the same thing goes for other things. We have to be proactive in making spaces for these conversations, because this would never happen if we weren't talking about the power of conversation and the power of listening and the power of opening our hearts. So now I'm inclined to not only participate in these things virtually, but actually sit down with my family and say, can we have a conversation? Because family unit, the way in which you act with yourself and your family is going to be reflected in the way in which the world shapes around you. So we have to look inwards in order to manifest outwards. So thank you again for holding this space.
I guess I'll piggyback on that. The slogan in my ministry, Inner Light Ministries, is take this consciousness and multiply it. We say that at the end of everything. And for me, I think part of the value of this and having an opportunity to be in these kinds of conversations on a frequent basis, it's just remembering how important it is to not just to create the space, but to consciously redirect our attention. It's that pain pushes until vision pulls. Do people know what you stand for, not just what you stand against? If they look at your emails, your memes, your Facebooks, your conversations, is the vision of your potential and your possibility in it. And what I find is that sometimes we can get together, even in the spaces that we're supposed to be uplifting each other, and commiserate about all of the stuff that's going on. And we have to be very deliberate as well as redirecting the attention and consciously making it the question. Calling each other up. What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What are your visions? What do you see? Let's talk about that. Because as a lifelong movement builder, I can tell you that's how the progress happened. You sit around the kitchen table or whatever. We weren't just crying about racism or crying about homophobia. It's what's the vision that we see? And then moving in that direction.
I love that. I'm gonna apply that one too. Oh, so much richness here. For me, the value of everything that we've created and generated here and that we've experienced is enormous. I've learned so much from all of you. One of my greatest takeaways is, all of the strength that I'm seeing here for all of us, and all the beauty within the madness and the ugliness that we're seeing within the world. I'm looking forward to actually digest this conversation, because I'm very aware that we are having our conversation here. There's a chat as well. So I've pressed save chat on those little 3 dots so that I can actually digest that part of this beautiful conversation of everyone who's been here. I'm aware that there are over 170 people in the Zoom room, and so many more of you are also listening. So you're all part of this conversation. And so I feel we've been having this conversation on so many levels, things spoken, unspoken, shared verbally, in writing, in inspiration, in our hearts. Incredibly rich. I just want to, thank you, Anita and Joan, so much for bringing us all together, for everyone who's here. And just my deep love and gratitude.
So Shelley, I'm hoping you can talk now, because I know there's 2 more minutes left. And as one of the co-hosts, I don't have to talk. I am just so grateful to have everyone here. So it's your turn.
Okay, I'll come up and back clean up. No, just speaking from my heart, I am sitting in great gratitude. Gratitude that you all got up on a Saturday morning and came together to be authentic and be real and speak with each other. And I have learned so much from each one of you. I have never, ever regretted sitting down and having a good conversation with a friend, with a colleague, with a stranger, and with groups of women that I didn't know until today, but now I feel like I know. And for all of those of you who are watching, thank you. Thank you for doing what you do as well. We are sitting in deep gratitude for all of you and for our individual and collective efforts. So I've had a great time. Thank you for making my Saturday really, really good.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Anita. Everyone, guests, I truly would love to continue the conversation sometime, and it doesn't have to be with other people listening. That's actually more normal for this practice. And thank you for having us as part of Humanity Rising, in the women's part. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for, just as one of you said, one really needs to digest all of the wisdom and that has been conveyed here, but thank you for sharing so authentically and so from, it was such a heartfelt conversation, and sharing all of your energy and the active listening and the wisdom on hope and unity, truly moving. And it was also so apparent in the chat that these are conversations that, ignite people's hearts, but also the yearning to want to step up and really have the hope and have the unity, and that there is a possibility, and that it can be ignited by heartfelt, authentic conversation is such an important quest to highlight, because conversations really can catalyze action. And I'm just trying to find, there was so many pieces of wisdom that came up here, and just highlight some of the things. One of them is that you yourselves, all you viewers, I hope that this living room conversation also ignites you to create these ripples of impact and have conversations, whether it's within your family, within your community, within work, with a stranger, with someone with a different perspective, whatever it might be. And sometimes with yourself, that conversation we have with ourselves, because that's how we think is also how we convey to others. And maybe just start by asking, what is unity for you? What is the power of unity for you? And what is hope? What is your vision for the future? Sometimes we don't ask the questions, so we have a difficult time navigating towards actually visualizing it. And I also thought it was so beautiful to have different generations conveying sort of their perspective. And Exaya, I hope I'm saying your name right. The way, was it correct?
She say it right. So let her say it.
Shiai. Okay, Shiai. Sharing out of your perspective, that is also so important for all generations. I mean, all of our perspectives are important, but that as a teenager, because of the injustices in the world, you've changed your course of purpose to proactively fight and have resonance with what is right and the truth, and to be of service of others. And that is the key component. We are here to be the service of humanity. And the importance of these intergenerational, diverse, inclusive conversations is also so vital. And remember that challenges can, catapult us to awareness and consciousness and unity. It might be turmoil when we're in it, but it can also, really flourish into something that can be game-changing for the good. There was other things, I think, Shelley, recognizing that everything is interconnected and related. I mean, that is a narrative that has been so on par with everything that has been said during these 9 days, the interconnectedness. And hasn't COVID-19 just proven that to all of us? And the interconnectedness we have to nature. There is the fundamental connection to ourselves. And how we act towards ourselves and towards people around us is also how we act, out there in life. And also, I loved, Reverend Deborah, your acronym for HOPE: heart, open, possibility, and engagement. And also to remember that you can't heal what you don't feel. So many of us, I know myself, we have so much numbness that we don't even know, because it's a way to protect our layers of emotions or body, or, to keep on thriving. But to really try and connect, in order to heal, we also have to, feel the pain. Once it's felt, it can surface. And then Lina, I think you mentioned that peace is inevitable. And I think that says it all. Love and peace, we are innately love, and peace is inevitable. And let's level up our level of maturity and sovereignty and responsibility and trust, and really, show up to be the leaders, people, individuals, family members, whatever it might be that we want to be, and that we also want to see, and create those ripples of impact, and to really allow ourselves to have conversations that can both be painful and rewarding and easy and difficult. And I just wanted to actually read something that came to my mind when we were talking about this, because we tapped quite a lot into freedom, justice, and unity, and also looking with what is happening around the world, not least in the United States, that is sort of not only the COVID-19, but sort of the racism and all that tragic, which is so painful to watch. So I wanted to just read a quote from who we all know, the American activist in the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks, who said, "People always say that I didn't give up my seat because I was tired, but that isn't true. No, the only tired I was tired of giving in. I would like to be remembered as a person who wanted to be free, so other people would also be free. I'm leaving this legacy to all of you to bring peace, justice, equality, love, and fulfillment of what our lives should be. Without vision, the people will perish. And without courage and inspirations and dreams, they will die. The dream of freedom and peace. If I can sit down for freedom, you can stand up for children. I believe there is only one race, the human race." And it's so true. We are one. And as I did before the other days, this beautiful book, Soul Awakening Practice, has a beautiful, sorry, a bit touched here, has a beautiful section about peace. And one of them is a messaging: there cannot be peace until we end our rebellion against Holy Mother Nature, and until we recover the ancestral knowledge of our kinship with nature and the family of all beings. Nature is manifestation of peace, radiating with life. A really good little gem to have by your bedside. Thank you so much, beautiful souls and women and powerful, courageous leaders, for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And I really do hope that this conversation will continue, whether in a new panel session or in living room discussions all over the world. And thank you for the change that you're all contributing to and for really paving that way. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Jim.
Thank you, Sabina. That was a very eloquent summary of the session today. It's been quite moving to me to realize that in cities across the United States, there are a range of activities from direct action to aggressive manifestations about the reactions to George Floyd's killing. And here we've been for 2 hours in a living room conversation, modeling what should be happening in every living room across the United States and around the world. What a world it would be if everybody was having, over the last 2 hours, a soulful, vulnerable, open-hearted conversation about hope and love and interconnectedness. The world would move on its pivot. And somehow this dichotomy between everything that would have produced the tragedy of George Floyd and everything that produced this living room conversation virtually simultaneously is the koan that humanity wrestles with as we move through the pandemic. And I want to just acknowledge that, and also to quote Martin Luther King, which came to mind, Sabina, when you drew from Rosa Parks. The reason why peace is inevitable in the end is because, as Martin Luther King says, the universe bends toward justice. The arc of the universe bends toward justice. And Joan and Anita and all you beautiful women, I think you've helped to bend the arc today. And the purity of your hearts and the clarity of your visions have been profoundly moving to me. And I just want to thank each and every one of you. Tomorrow, we will conclude our women's circles. Manaz Afkhami, who was the Minister of Women's Affairs under the Shah of Iran in the 1970s, who was expelled, and she was put under the death sentence, the fatwa. She never was allowed to go back to Iran. And for the last 30, 40 years, she's been working tirelessly on various institutional mechanisms for women's empowerment. She created Sisterhood is Global, which she ran for many years, and now having founded and now directing the Learning Partnership, which is a women's network around the world. She'll be convening our final panel in conjunction with Linda Tucker. We thought it would be very appropriate to end the 10 days by connecting human voices, women's voices, with the roar of the white lionesses in South Africa. We need their courage now. We need their lion-heartedness now. And I thank you for everything that you've manifested in that direction. So thank you, everyone. Thank you all for just being present for this conversation. And we'll see you same time, 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. Central European Time tomorrow, and every day for as long as the pandemic unfolds. Bye, everyone.